So you're like, I don't know what time it is.
I'm going to record then so that if we're doing this, if we hit it on the nose, we're doing well.
Exactly. I love it. Thank you. Yep. I am excited to see some usual friendly faces, a few new names, and good to be back with you. So Tim, while people are sort of streaming in and getting settled and getting seated, you and I have been talking a lot about, well, first of all, the fact that my voice is failing because of a cold. So if anyone's wondering, that's why I sound a little weird. No, in honestness, we've actually been using the phrase tone deaf a lot for the past couple of weeks because a lot of people, business owners, are in that whoa and freaking out and having struggles and so forth. So it's almost just a good reminder as we get into this conversation. We're going to start to get into some pretty candid stuff and talk about money and the realities of how sometimes running a business is not all rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah, what I love about the weekly briefing, and this is our one time a week where we get to have this open conversation with business owners, creative business owners. We take this conversation from our platform, listen to what's going on, and see what discussions are taking place. But also, me like you, Joel, we have a lot of one-on-one conversations with business owners, and with the accelerator program that's launching. It's been very interesting to hear people's needs, and then doing these strategy sessions with them to understand what their current needs are and what we have that best fits their needs, or maybe we don't have the right thing for their needs, and to kind of give them some other pointers. But in that strategy conversation, you start hearing where the real issues are. So our setup today is to say, maybe we need to stop talking theoretical and dive right into, like, let's show people how to solve these problems like we've been doing in our strategy session for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's a great segue. And now that we're 2 minutes in, I'll take a brief moment just to say welcome, everyone. I'm Joel. This is Tim. This is the weekly briefing, which is this moment where every week we take 30 minutes, and Tim and I, we take our listening that we're doing throughout the week, and we show up here and say, hey, this is what we are hearing in our community where there's about 500 owners, and what we're hearing from our clients. And right, we have a lot of visibility to a lot of information, a lot of data, a lot of trends and so forth. So this week is really all about that, because we've been doing lots of strategy sessions. So this is where an owner will reach out to us and say, hey, can I get 30 minutes with someone from RevThink to just talk about my business, where I am, where I want to go. And we spend half an hour just processing with them. And sometimes they're a fit for one of our accelerators, which is like a class or a course that teaches a specific topic. But yeah, to your point, Tim, it's been interesting to note how there's a lot of interest in Jumpstart, which I'm excited about. We can certainly talk about that. But some of the more advanced topics, people are like, I just need to talk about cash flow or ways to save money or how to generate business in a really short-term basis. And so that, I think, in part was the genesis of today's topic.
Yeah, it's so interesting when we talk about some of the theory behind running a business or mastering the 7 ingredients or commonalities, even in the last few weeks, talking about what this slowdown means. And last week, talking about specifically stay in a cash position, understand who your clients are so you're not pricing beyond those categories. And then to jump in a one-on-one call with a business owner and realizing that they don't really have a pricing structure to begin with, let alone the ability to adjust that pricing structure, or no real visibility in their cash flow or cash position that they can manage and make cash decisions right now when they really, really need to. So in a half-hour call, I can whip out a cash flow for somebody and kind of give them some instant visibility into those decision making. But we're often theoretical, and you and I said, no, this week let's actually teach some exact things that we can be doing right now when it's slowing down, because there's a little slowdown, but also this idea of, like, how do you prepare for when it picks itself back up? Because you can invest in the wrong place too during a slowdown, and then you're kind of buried in a very bad position when the project starts speeding up again.
So let me mention this too, Tim. We are running an accelerator. It'll be kicking off next week, called Revolve. Now, Revolve, some of you have been through it because we did it back when the pandemic first hit. And it was really our response to a bunch of people in free fall, and we just said, let's all get together and let's go through some timeless principles and get back to basics. What's interesting, Tim, is there hasn't been a whole lot of interest in Revolve yet, because I don't think people realize we're going to be going through and having those conversations. We're going to just be getting together as a group and saying, let's help everybody that's trying to figure out what to do next. And I guess I'll just say there's some interest in us just opening that up to a much wider audience and making it accessible to everybody. And we are listening. So stay tuned. With that, Tim, here's the 3 things we talked about last week that were a little bit theoretical. But if I was going to challenge you and say, how do we get practical about these things? We talked about cash position. We talked about scaling production to match revenue. And we talked about how to price the market while we wait for things to return. So if those are the 3 things that we touch on next week, where would you go from there to sort of roll up our sleeves and actually get to work?
Yeah, that's perfect question. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show opportunity that we have at RevThink that most people don't have this visibility opportunity to look at. But it's one of the data points we get to process and share when we're thinking about strategy for our clients and how to kind of deal with certain cycles. And the key to our position is to be able to look at certain industry matrix, because we have our hands on and knowledge from certain clients that we're working with. And right here, what we did is we've done something very simple where we've taken people's balance sheets over the last 2 years, combined them together to get a sense of what are the trends that we see in cash for people at this current time. It's very interesting because the opportunity that people have with cash grows when the market shrinks, right? So if it's the true with any economy, as other people are becoming desperate for cash, if you're in a cash position, you're the buyer, you're in a buyer's position and can do something. Well, think about the other side of a slowdown is going to be opportunity. So this is a chance, if you're in a cash position, to build up that future opportunity. And looking at it, at trends like this allows us to see the moment that you can take advantage of it. So something as simple as looking at accumulation of everyone's bank accounts, you can see what the average is in this black line, and then see what happens in a certain moment. So at the end of last year, look at the dip that took place way below average last year in people's bank accounts. So simply said, this is when people got rid of their cash part, the banking account part of it. So where do they go next? Well, long-term accounts receivable. Hey, our clients still owe us money, so I can still spend because this future money is going to come into our accounts. But when that trend drops below average too, those 2 big hits, we actually have to go to our final place, which is really debt or long-term cash reserve. What's also interesting when you're looking at the total asset trend here, just combining the assets, you can see the dip. But when you're looking at liabilities, this is where we started seeing really the slowdown, right? Because accounts payable dropping is often good. It should. But what it also means is you didn't need people in accounts payable. This is when the freelancers started making the phone call saying, hey, it's slow for me. Well, it was slow because people stopped paying them. So this trend here, right here in December, is what we're all feeling. Hey, it was a slow November and December. But in reality, if you're a business owner, you still had cash on hand and some accounts receivable coming in. So you floated to January, but we often depend on a very heavy December accounts receivable going into January and February, and we don't feel the hit because we've managed in that way. With this earlier down cycle, a regular January and February would still feel somewhat regular to me. If I'm looking at number of jobs, the size of jobs, what clients are getting, it feels somewhat regular. It's just our cash position hasn't been there. What has happened, though, is the frequency that the jobs are being offered. And tomorrow in Confab, Joel, you're talking to Steve Viola. He's a buyer. He's going to tell us what it's like to be hiring people right now or outsourcing the work from FX to business owners. But we can see here that credit has not yet been totally hit, which is really good. People are there. And our encouragement right now is, how do we keep you in this cash position? Let's not go to consumer credit to get through this time. It's a really, really, really bad cycle. It's going to take you way too long to get out of that cycle. So we want to work through other things you can do as a business owner to get out of this current crisis.
Yeah, believe me, I'm glad you mentioned Steve tomorrow, because inside Confab, this is something that I try to make a priority, that throughout the year, let's bring in big buyers, right? Someone from FX networks, people from Disney, people from some of the big entertainment or telecom businesses, and just ask them point blank, what are you seeing? Right? We're here to listen. What are the problems that you're up against? How are you solving them? And then when and why do you go out of house? And has that shifted in the past few months? Like, what I want to find somebody from Google or Meta, right, Tim, and ask them what changed. Now, a lot of these people can't say things like that publicly, so it makes my job a little hard. But needless to say, having a mastermind where a bunch of owners all get together and we get to have a really candid conversation, and perhaps we don't record it because we want that person to be able to speak freely and tell us, yeah, we hit the brakes back in December. I can't say it publicly, but here's why you're feeling.
Yeah, we're very blessed to have an industry where people are open in such a way, and they can recognize what the situation is, and they're willing to share it. We're blessed to have a community that people have a moment to gather and have that sharing. And something like Confab is just a perfect, people that don't know this, Confab is a weekly gathering of members. It's a paid membership, but weekly gathering of members, and a space where you can share ideas, process big thoughts. I know you did sales keeping just a few months ago as just one kind of 4-week cycle of teaching sales keeping, but conversations and open dialogues that we can have. And it's not like this. It's not a webinar like you and I are doing right now. It is everyone turns on their camera to choose a topic, and we walk through the topic together. So, but in our current cycle, it's good to, what you're playing out there in Confab and what we're encouraging here is it's good to have a listening ear. When you're managing cash, you have to be making long-term decisions for your business. You have to get some sort of data. And we're so familiar with sales and budgets and accounts receivable because that's stuff that we can see. So your eyes are a good place to get pieces of data, but really using your ears is another really great place for data. And those conversations you can have with your, I'll call it your friends and family cycle, those clients that you're closest to, and asking them some very candid questions and getting some understanding of where they are, what problems they're actually facing now, and how you can help them. That's really your best investment right now, because you have to start planning now for what those problems look like and how long you might have to survive until those problems come across your doorstep.
So if let's pretend, Tim, I'm back and I'm running Impossible, and you totally nailed it.
If you had to go back and run Impossible, I actually failed you a lot, so I apologize.
Right. Well, we'll just rewind 10 years.
Okay, yeah, that's better. Yeah.
What's interesting is we typically would have really strong Decembers, and then January would be really quiet, and sometimes February would be a little quiet, and then things would start to really take off again. To an owner like myself, because there was a period of my life when I would be like, how are we doing? And I would look at my bank account. Obviously I'm laughing now because you're gonna judge me harshly.
Yes, but because you should never look at your bank account.
I know, because the bank account really doesn't tell you much of anything. But my question is, I'm trying to get to is, what would you say to the owner who is actually still there? We're not going to call you out by name, but to the owner who is like, yeah, I check my checking account balance every single day. That's about as sophisticated as I am right now. What's our do this next?
Yeah, actually, you should build a cash flow, and cash flows are easy to find. You can download them off the internet. I had a coaching program they gave me a basic one years ago. The cash flow is really a powerful tool at this moment. Here's my encouragement. Do not use the cash flow in QuickBooks. It's not asking the right questions or allowing you to move things around. And if you need a copy of a cash board, we have them at RevThink. We give them away all the time. Just send me an email or DM me in community. My email is tim@revthink.com. If you ask me for that, Erich, who assists me, she can help send those to you, or I can send those to you. What's nice about a cash board is that you're actually putting out in front of you for the next few weeks, maybe even the next quarter, if you can stretch it out that far, of what your cash balance will be on a week by week basis. You can take your current cash balance, what you have cash on hand right now, anticipated expenses this week, next week, the following week, and that pattern that continues throughout the month, month at the beginning, rent at the beginning of the month, payroll twice a month. You can put that pattern out there and realize your expenses that take place in that pattern. And then you align those expenses to your actual receivables. So you have the receivables that your clients owe you now. You forecast the date you would expect to receive that money, not the due date on the invoice. We know clients don't pay off based on the due date. We call it a forecast date. The date you actually expect to receive that money could be sooner or often later than was due. And then you can see where your cash gap is. Hey, when am I not getting the money in to pay the bills that I'm projecting I would owe? If you can see that into the future, you could possibly not accrue that expense. Hey,
Yeah.
if I'm recognizing that that money is not coming in, I should not be paying that bill, or I should, something simple as I should pay a minimum balance on a credit card instead of the full balance off the credit card. It might hurt my ability to have future credit or access that credit. But the ability to kind of keep on paying that and stay in the cash position to keep on making those credit card payments is more important during a short down cash cycle, and look at the long-term plan.
So I love that. And as a former sales guy, the other thing I really love to do, because it stimulates my imagination, and it's going to stimulate your imagination for those of you listening that do sales, is you create a line on your cash board called incoming potential projects. And you can drop on there, what if we get that $30,000 promo from Discovery? What if we get that $80,000 thing from Dish Network? And then you can start playing a game called, well, if that happens, I'll make this decision. If that doesn't happen, I'll make a different decision. But you're making that decision, Tim, sometimes 6, 8, 10 weeks in advance, which is a very different way. Like you're just going to sleep at night so much better when you're looking into the future and saying, if that comes to pass, I'm making the decision now rather than when all hell is breaking loose and the job wasn't awarded and I booked all those people and I've got all these bills coming in and all of a sudden I'm freaking out.
Yeah, here's an example of our cash board that we created. And you can see exactly what Joel's talking about, right? So here would be a starting balance. And then this would be in this column is the total of expenses I'm expected to have that week. So here would be my remaining balance. One thing you can easily do is you say, well, obviously I can't have a negative 17 in my checking account, but this is an owner distribution. I can move this owner distribution later because I'm the owner. There are things that are flexible and I can manage my cash that way. But also in the long run, Joel, kind of what you're saying is, I can see when I start running out of money, it gives me the cash goal for future sales. I can cut back all these expenses, right, and do that work. But I still, as a business owner, deserve this distribution. Instead of just removing it and being in the cash position, I can actually try to get new sales and understand within a 4 or 6 week sales cycle what's possible. It gives me that goal. And what you said, Joel, is perfect. It gives me the vision of what I need to achieve. And when I have an understanding of, 20,000 is two $10,000 projects. No, that's 100.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Like I could solve it with 2 10s or 4 5s, or a 5 and a 10 and a 700. Like I start imagining who my clients are and what I can go after to get those projects. So this sort of a spreadsheet that you can work through your current projects, your current accounts receivable, the current expenses, and look into the future. You can project the possible decisions that you have to make or could make to stay cash positive. And now you're actually strategizing what's the best decision instead of reacting.
Yeah. So I have a feeling inside of Revolve, we're probably going to just roll up our sleeves and be like, all right, everybody, download the template, import your expenses, put some basic receivables on there, and let's build a cash board and show people how to actually process that. Because over the period of weeks, we can even help them establish, dare I say, the routine, because that's another piece of the magic formula.
Yeah, the goal of the Revolve Accelerator is actually to remind people of the decisions that are possible to make as a business owner. We often fall into cycles that we repeat and we forget to ask questions. should I have made a choice? Is this an opportunity? Does everybody do it this way? Are often the things that we need to navigate. And when would we ever understand that? Or when would we ever get to a point where we can look at those decisions? So revolve is a moment we say, hey, let's remind ourselves of the questions that are possible to ask, and therefore new decisions we can make to get through certain cycles. And that's what we're doing with revolve. Like, one will just be tools. Let's put those decisions in front of us. Let's make a cash board. We'll show you where the decisions can be made on a cash board. But in other situations, like when we're going to be interviewing some of the people in our industry, they're going to remind us of other things that they've done to win. And we'll say, oh yeah, gosh, I should have, or I know somebody that does that. I can actually go do that myself and take advantage of this moment that we can think and understand and get ourselves out of the usual routine cycles that we put our brains into.
Yeah. So so we've encouraged anyone that doesn't currently run a really strong cash flow report. If you don't know where to start, Tim, you're going to get DM'd
yeah, flat out. Everyone should DM me. And if you don't know how to do it, you should book a half-hour call with me. I will build this cash board with you. It's so important for you right now. There's no reason why I would ever not build a cash board for you. So just find the half-hour block. Let's do it together. If just taking the spreadsheet's not enough.
The other thought I'm having is inside of Confab, we almost treat that like our weekly laboratory. And it might be the perfect time to say, hey, let's revisit, because everybody in there, I think, build a cash board among a few other tools when we were teaching the factors method. But that's probably been a year or two ago. And I'm sure a lot of people are out of that habit. Maybe they've forgotten the principles, the fundamentals, and we should revisit that. And again, use that as a place where people can experiment, try things, learn from each other, like what works for you, what doesn't work for you. I think that would be a really good exercise.
If there's anybody here that's not a member of a Confab and you're curious, it's a simple $300 a month membership. We haven't raised the prices in years. I don't know if we're going to touch the prices in the near future, but this is like, just join us. It's a $300 a month, and it's four conversations, or a weekly conversation doing exactly and tackling these topics. And yeah, Joel, if you want me to jump on and do a workshop in Confab next week or the following week, whenever we have time available, I'd be happy to do it.
Well, we'll have a few buyers come in and talk to us first, and then we can have a cash board discussion called "What are we going to do with all this money we're getting from these big buyers?"
I actually prefer that one.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I mean, for anyone interested in Confab, I would say DM me, since Tim, you're going to be overwhelmed with people DMing you for a cash flow report. But I'm happy to get you answers on that. So but let's get back to like rolling up our sleeves and actually getting the work done. Is there a longer term encouragement that you would offer people about this maintaining a strong cash position in the short term? Get a handle on how you manage cash beyond looking at your checking account balance, and look at maybe 6 or 12 weeks into the future. What else?
So yeah, it's interesting because current cash is one thing, and you can use a cash board to look at your current cash and understand it, right? But future cash has a different problem to solve. And actually that future cash problem is solved with using or recognizing a different types of debt that you can build up with your company. What I mean by that is, when I often talk about debt, or people talk about debt, they're like thinking about dollar debt, cash debt, and they've put money on a credit card or got a loan from a bank, or Amex is like the worst and the best for that. Amex will give you a card really fast and then make you pay it off next month, right? But there are other debts that we get into as business owners. For example, you can get into a talent debt. So at a moment in time where you actually need to bring up a body of people to step into a new project, you can realize, for the last couple of years, I haven't encouraged any new talent. I haven't encouraged any new thinking. I haven't encouraged any new talent growth. So now the time comes to step up. I don't have the ability to do it. If you're in that ability, sometimes you can use cash infusion by hiring an outsider that can get it done, or you miss the cash opportunity that comes because you can't take that project on. You can actually have debts when it comes to clients. This is the problem with a gorilla client. You've put too much weight in certain entities. And when that rug is pulled from that one entity, you don't have the ability to follow through or find another source of revenue. So there's a debt cycle in the future cash, but there's also an investment cycle when it comes to future cash. So think of it like this. you're currently a professional in the broadcast space, and a lot of your clients are the big name brands of broadcast, and broadcast has a slight down cycle. You haven't looked for clients outside the broadcast space. So right now, impulsively, you jump over to finance or healthcare. You just jump over.
Pharma.
Yeah.
Pharma. Everyone wants to get a piece of pharma.
Pharma, it seems like it's someone's always having a problem with their foot fungus or something like that. So we got to start making more commercial about foot fungus.
Yep.
So now that we've recognized this new, field that we want to get into, what are we doing? You're pouring cash or talent or resources into a new field. And then the old clients call us. So where are we now? Like, did we divide our resources? Did we divide the opportunities? Did we not recognize all the ability there was to actually take on a market when it recovered itself? So you can actually make bad investments by panicking when you didn't intend to, and growing businesses in certain ways that you didn't actually want to put out there. Joel, I think I lost you for a second. How did I do? Nope. Hopefully you didn't lose me. It was someone chat me real quick. Oh, there you go. So thank you, Karen. So it's the investment cycle that we're in right now that you'd say, hey, now that the economy is kind of shrinking and there's more talent available, more opportunity to step into more opportunity in the future to step into something. What do we do with our abilities right now? Here's what I think would be welcome back. Here's what I think would be a poor choice: to actually impulsively jump into an industry or segment industry you're not familiar with. You're really going to spend really good time and resources in working in a field that in the future you won't be able to take advantage of it, because when that part of the industry recovers, then there'll be more competitors in that area, and you're not going to be the specialist anymore. It's also, when you're thinking, oh, I'm going to pivot over to a new segment industry, you're not thinking everyone else is doing the same thing. Of course they are. Everyone's thinking, where I am right now is dry, I should jump over to somewhere else. Our encouragement would be like, no, this is the moment to actually stay the expert in your field. This is actually when the time comes to say, I'm going to really build up the sense of what it means to recover during a cycle in the expertise that I have. And you can do that by looking at your positioning, understanding exactly who you are. You're going to manage your current cash problem anyway. So your future cash will grow when your competitors are distracted, they're spread out, and then you get to step up. And your talent acquisition will be more clear: who you're going to bring on, how that talent's going to grow, and how you're going to build yourself up. So you always want to buy in a low cycle, right? This is the moment to kind of think through, keep yourself in cash position, and your future growth has to be thinking that with the same opportunities.
Oh, by the way, sorry for my interruption there. I'm glad you mentioned positioning, because long term, right? I can't think of one of the more fundamental things than to have a really clear, unique, remarkable positioning, especially when the market starts to recover. You're going to really penetrate and be able to seize opportunities way ahead of everybody else who's still in that generalist mindset. So I'm excited that there's a few shops that have already said, hey, while we're sort of a little slow, we're going to invest this time and energy into getting our positioning really dialed for this next season that we think is going to come back in the fall. I'm like, wow, that's really shrewd. That's a big investment. But we'll go through that accelerator, and I've got my favorite copywriter, Brittany, with us. We're gonna have fun. It's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, through Jumpstart or the positioning accelerators, both of those have an opportunity. I actually wrote an email this morning to someone, and I think he might even be here, so I'm gonna repeat it to him. But it was good advice. As business owners, one of the biggest things we struggle with is imposter syndrome, and the reason is because we don't really know who we are. And then so the first thing we go to is being like everyone else. And we're really afraid to be bold because we're afraid that might shrink our marketplace down instead of actually grow the value of our business. And then positioning workshops or positioning work is actually starting to get your own words out of yourself and practicing it so that you can say it with confidence and clarity. And now you become a signal in the noise, right? You actually are the one person that uniquely is positioned as you are. And people can find you, they can imagine where you are. When I use the word positioning, I often think of it's the position that you have in the brain of the buyer. How does your buyer find you when it comes to them thinking, oh, that's the resource I want to use? Where do they position you in their buying phase? And you want to be in the right position when they're saying, oh, I need somebody that does X. Boom, that's the company, your first company comes to mind. Well, strong positioning gets you there. The buyers will refer to you, they'll come to you first. They'll expect expertise from you and so on. So it really does grow good clients when you have good positioning.
And I will say this, when things get soft and we go into a downturn, it's extra painful if you don't have great, strong positioning, because that's also a big source of trust. Because think about it, if you're a buyer, you're a big client, when you look at your generalist firms, those are the ones that you're like, I can pretty much, I can have my in-house team do that. I can find somebody else that'll do it cheaper. But the expert that you really trust, you're like, I can't let go of that person. They're the only one who does that. I'm going to almost double down on that relationship and lean into it. Yeah. So hopefully that's an encouragement to, hopefully you're not facing that right now, but if you are, now might be a good time to get it squared away.
I could talk
Tim,
about
we
this
have
for
too
2
much to
more
talk
hours,
about.
But do we just keep on going? Do we jump over to community? Do we do it tomorrow in Confab? Or do we keep on talking about this? This is like I feel like we're just getting started, but it's a very critical moment that we don't want people to miss out on. I know that's Ryan Summers says, don't stop. I think that's why we're thinking like, where do we put this energy that people have? Because there's a lot of concern, and how do we create the right framework for people to make the decisions? I know with certainty, please focus on your cash. Focus on that cash board. Again, if you don't have it, let me help you. You're going to feel so much better to see the future. Even if the future doesn't look so great, to know what the problem is that you're trying to solve is very helpful. And it's the beginning of making good strategic decisions.
Well, I think my encouragement is going to be, let's just continue to have this ongoing conversation. We're here every week. You folks know how to reach me and Tim. Jump into the community if you're not already there. And of course, start conversations. You can DM either of us, but your peers are all there and they're having conversations about these topics. And then we're going to spend time every week in Confab and in these accelerators, rolling up our sleeves and getting the work done and putting the systems and routines in place that are going to help you run a thriving business.
Is it really clear where people can find us if they want to schedule a call with us? I think it is, right? Let's just show this real quick too. I feel like I'm in demo mode today. Actually, I watched a Chris Do video and he's always in so much demo mode but here's our RevThink website. And if you go to Studio Accelerator here, scroll down to the bottom, it says schedule a call, and just click on that. You can find time that we're available, and we'd be happy to walk through whatever strategy fits your needs. We'll walk through that with you. We'll give you honest feedback on what's going on, what resources we know are available to you right now that we have or others have, and walk you through whatever issues you have. So that really is, when we say schedule a call, I think that's what we mean. Like, just get on our Calendly link and find a spot that works for you.
One good turn deserves another, Tim. So if you're in the community, right over here, direct messages, this is where you just start typing Tim Thompson. Tim, I'm sending you a message. Hi. Yeah. That's it. So easy to find us.
We love it.
All right. We are 4 minutes over. Thank you everyone for being here, for being part of the weekly briefing. Tim, it's going to be an exciting, and I say that with a question mark on it because it's going to also be challenging, I think, for the next few weeks and months ahead, but we're going to get through this and we'll all do it together. And I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to be with you guys. We'll see you all in community. Please feel free to use us. We exist so that you thrive in business, life, and career. Please take us to the task so we can get you there.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Hey, David. Good to see you.
See you, David.
Bye, Paulina. Thanks, Ricardo.